Ladies and gentlemen, yes, this is your favorite show, Sports Unfolded, with your favorite hosts, Eric and Ron.
Hey, sports fans. What? It's Monday and it's Sports Unfolded? Yes, a very special Sports Unfolded sports special. We're doing
It's a starting five.
But, Ron, the starting five worst
Yes.
franchises ever in sports history.
This is a good one. This is
fun. Hopefully, if you're joining us live, chime in. Let us know what you think. If you agree with our starting five, if you don't, let us know who you think should be one of the worst franchises in sports history. We're going to have a little fun. We'll go through each one of the teams, kind of go through a couple of different scenarios on the what and why they are the worst franchises. Obviously, there would have been some honorable mentions as well.
Oh, of course.
But, we decided to just beat up these five teams. So, again, if you've never watched...
I'm going to beat up more.
If you've never watched Sports Unfolded, we are a weekly sports podcast covering all of the top sports stories. We have a segment called The Starting Five, and we decided to do a little special today and have some fun with this. So, Ron, when you're ready to kick off, we could start off with that number 5 franchise.
Oh, and let me tell you, it's a dandy, right?
Dandy.
Because this could be different, a few months from now.
It's the Dandy Lions.
The Dandy Lions, exactly.
So,
I mean, look, Eric, we know, look, this is a franchise that has had their share of great players. Of course, Megatron,
Barry Sanders,
Alex Karras,
yep.
Barry Sanders, of course. I think he's the best running back of all time. There's some others that, have a say in it, like Walter Payton, Jim Brown, But, Barry Sanders got so frustrated with this franchise that he retired.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They're two best players. So the guy that leads them in rushing and the guy that led them in receiving, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, both retired way too early because they just couldn't deal with the franchise anymore. That's right. How bad they were.
It's awful.
And then I look at it and I said, which head coach won the most games? That was Wayne Fontes, who was 66 and 67. So that's really impressive. Last championship, 1957, they defeated the Cleveland Browns. So think about that. That's kind of
pre-Super Bowl.
59-14, the last time they even sniffed a championship. Now, obviously, their luck has changed in recent time, but can they get to the Super Bowl?
Sure.
Right? We don't know. We don't know. Yeah, not after last Sunday, right?
When you look at them, what are they? 603, 709 with 34 ties?
34 ties, yep. 9 and 14.
It's a losing record, right?
Yeah.
It's a losing franchise. And, it's like since 1990 is where, recent history, they've made the playoffs 10 times.
10 times. That's bad.
A lot of things went wrong in those 10 times, though. They made it last year, and they took an exit when they shouldn't have. And this is one of those reasons why, they're there, Eric. When you look at it, let's look at it this way. There are, about 8 things that you look at, with a franchise that's going wrong. Scouting. Are they scouting players properly? Drafting. You know, that's a big problem for some teams. We know that.
Yes, we do.
The trades that they're making, you know, are they always on the losing end? And just idiots running the franchise, coaching, preparation, and grooming that talent to become what it's supposed to be, right? And of course, just the lack of talent and bad luck. Now, when you look at those categories, you gotta that the top one has got to be coaching,
Agreed.
because that is so important. And when you look at the history of this team, it's just littered with terrible coaches, littered with it, you know, and just the preparation, which is part of that coaching problem, you know. Are the coaches getting them prepared for the game? Do the players even prepare themselves? And they're not doing that. That's a big part of why Detroit is on this list. And we're still seeing the mistakes from coaching. We're still seeing it.
Yep. And
It
I will
could
say
be
this
their
too.
undoing this year.
Think about it. Their best quarterback has been Matthew Stafford. He's broken all their records. And he went to another franchise to win a championship.
Yeah.
You know, that's when you know your franchise is just at a point where your best player goes to another franchise, ends up winning a championship, and then you sit back and go, okay, I wonder why they're number 5 on this list.
Yeah, and then of course the idiots running the franchise, right? You look at putting Matt Millen in place, and he
That
just
went well for them.
destroyed the team.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of the only franchises to win 0 games in a season. They went 0-16.
Yes, they
at
did.
one point.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often. I think they may be the only one in NFL history.
And if they weren't in the position they are right now, they would have been higher on this list. They would have been higher. Because at least there's some promise right now, right? There's that hope. I mean, they're one of the top 2 teams in the NFC right now. So it could be the year that they either drop down or just bungle it so much that they move up this list.
Yeah, listen, if they can't figure a way to get there in the next year or two, definitely got some issues. But I will say, I think I may be incorrect around. It looks like there was like, let's see. Detroit was the last team to do it, 2008. Before that was 1982.
That what?
For 0 wins, yeah. And then Cleveland 2017. Scratch that. 2017, they went 0-16.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about them soon too. But
of course, like this list would not be complete without Cleveland.
Detroit was the first non-expansion team to lose every game in a full season since World War II. Okay. So they're one of the original.
During World War II, don't forget, it was what, 12 games?
Probably not even. Like Tampa Bay, 0-14. Colts were 0-8.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Tigers, 0-10.
Brooklyn Tigers. I don't even remember them.
So Detroit, number 5 on this list. To your point, 2 best players in their history.
Yeah, Dick Lane,
retire. Imagine that. Retire.
Dick Lane.
Listen,
the night train.
They've had some players, man. 603, 709, 34. A losing record in their franchise's history. Last championship, 1957. Number 5 on this list, Ron.
Yeah. It was pretty brutal. It was pretty brutal.
If there's Detroit Lions fans out there watching live, how do you get through this? Let us know, because I am curious.
Well, you know, a team like Dallas better be careful.
1996, the last time Dallas won. But at least Dallas, I mean, they've had some success. Detroit, I mean, they haven't even been back to the playoffs, the championship game since 1957. Like they've lost in the.
I know.
So it's not very good.
I know. The history is just bad, right? You know, once the Super Bowl was established, they haven't really done anything.
No. And you think about it, one of the greatest runners of all time. You would think they would have at least sniffed a Super Bowl. All right, Ron.
I mean, what did you need? Maybe one defensive player.
We've
One, just get one.
Let's beat up on another team though, because I think the number 4 team is worse, and we're looking at the Cleveland Browns. You got different numbers than I have. All right, so we'll go 560. I have them with a losing record, 515, 541, and 11.
It might be that. I probably maybe not have read my writing very well. So what do you have there?
I have 515, 541, and 11.
Okay. No, that could be.
I will say this. How bad is this franchise, Ron? They left. They left.
Yeah,
Cleveland.
they left and became the Baltimore.
So they were so bad that they were like, just let's get rid of this team.
And then they started over.
And then they said, let's
didn't
bring
get
them
any
back.
better. It got worse.
So they've had 4 one hand here, 4 winning seasons since 1999.
Yeah, that's bad.
4. 3 times they've been in the playoffs in the last 25 years.
Now, going with, what I was saying earlier, putting those categories in, Cleveland just did a little more of that, right? So not only did Cleveland also have bad coaching, pretty bad, but they also, again, preparation. They go hand in hand, right? Also, the idiots running the show, starting, at the top, the owner. Say what you want. Starts with the owner. But also trades. They made some bad deals. And signings, I guess, goes along with that. I mean, bad signings. We talked about that main one that we knew was going to come and bite them in the behind. And it did like clockwork. Like clockwork. I mean, this team just, they had talent. They've drafted well. So why can't they put it all together? This is very similar to Detroit, but at least Detroit is now, getting some players and figuring things out. I mean, the jury is still out on them, but Cleveland, there is nothing. How long is it going to be before Myles Garrett decides to say, you know what? I'm not staying. I want to trade.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, you start to look at this franchise and say, how much can these fan base take? Again, 25 years, 4 winning seasons, and then you make one of the worst moves in NFL history with Deshaun Watson in that contract.
And you're stuck with them,
right? So it was like they just continue to, even when you think they can't do something worse, they prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And you got the man, the myth, the legend on it. Jim Brown, one of the best running backs in NFL history. Like, they've had players. Bernie Kosar. How many heartbreaking losses?
The defensive player. Oh God, I can't think of his name. A lineman. Like, he was so. Maybe it's not Thomas.
No. It's not.
I can't think of his name.
But I will say, think about what John Elway did to this team in the 80s when they had it. They had it in the bank, man. It was a done deal, a fumble. Like, it just seemed like every time this team even looked like they had an opportunity, we thought, look, a couple years ago, they figured it out, got to the playoffs. You're like, all right, Cleveland, right back to, 3 wins this season. It just amazes me that there's certain franchises, and we got 3 more to go, but that have just never figured it out. We've had 1 champion on this list out of these 5 that in the modern era. Again, we talked about the Lions before it was the NFL.
Yeah, if you want to call it the modern era.
Cleveland, same thing. 1964 was their last championship. They defeated the Baltimore Colts 27-0. 1964. 60
Yeah,
years.
that's pretty bad.
60 years ago, this team was a champion.
And they're just a shell of themselves now. Because right now, I kind of feel like they're at their lowest. Because they don't even they have one good player. One. And I don't see any hope. And they're going to lose him. They're going to lose him. And I hope it's not to retirement. I don't want him to
You
go
don't
the
want to
way of
Barry
Barry
Sanders.
Sanders. I don't want that. I want this guy in this league because he has a chance to break records. He has a chance. And he's too good of a player just to be wasted. And that's what he's doing right now. He's getting wasted on a crap team.
You are right, by the way. 562, 545, 14. 17 and 22 in the playoffs.
It's terrible.
All-time passing leader, Brian Sipe.
Exactly. Who the hell is he?
Jim Brown, Ozzie Newsome, another great player. Clay Matthews was one of the top defensive players. Paul Brown, though, had a great, as the head coach, 158, 48, and 8. Just didn't material. Those were way back in the day.
Yeah, that was way back when they did win those championships.
They've been around since 1946, Ron.
Yeah. They're one of the first teams, aren't they?
Oof. Yikes. Cleveland Brown fans, we feel for you because that's rough.
And Cleveland fans, I got to give it to Cleveland fans. They love their team.
Do they even have the dog pound
not
anymore?
Loved by the team.
Like, I don't even know if the dog pound exists anymore. That used to be a big thing.
I'm sure it does.
They pushed out
but
Bill
they chained
Belichick
up in
the day.
back locker room.
Look at these quarterbacks. Testaverde, Mayfield. Right? That was another bust. Couch. Tim Couch. That was horrible.
Horrible.
They had Trent Dilfer. Colt McCoy.
Hey, Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Not with them.
Yeah, Bernie Kosar was around for. Yeah, Sipe looked like he played from 76 to 83.
Yeah.
That's their best quarterback. I don't know.
Whew, that's rough. That's rough.
So
I don't know. I think if Baker could have stayed there, I think that was probably their best hope.
But I think that's where you start to find some of these franchises that struggle. They get rid of guys too quick, or they don't stick it out. And we've said this in the past and in some of our shows, when you switch coaches all the time, or you start to make all these changes, it affects a franchise because usually these guys, it takes 2 to 3 years.
There's no stability.
Think about what Dan Campbell did with Detroit. And a lot of us were like, fire this guy, It just took time for him to really implement his system, his attitude into a franchise. These franchises now, 1-2 years, the guy's gone. And then you sit back and go, okay, you got to start all over again. But now there's another 2 to 3 year process before these guys. And then guess what happens? You fire them because they didn't do so well those first 3 years.
Yeah, and the fact that, you're going through coaching staffs, and not for nothing, but when a quarterback has to have 3 or 4 different coordinators in their first 3 to 4 years, it's not good for the quarterback. It really isn't, because then the head is spinning because of having to learn new offenses all the time. And you're like a rookie every year.
8 coaches in the last 14 years.
That's
just
terrible.
in the last 14 years.
Yeah.
8 different coaches. Your franchise is never going to get off it just blows my mind. And some of these guys that get fired, they're 7 and 9.
And there are candidates that would make great head coaches for a team like this, and they don't go that route. They need somebody to bring stability. And I keep saying, Vrabel's a guy for that. He can actually, put something into a team that really needs it. And there's a lot of franchises that really need a coach to give them some stability. I mean, and there's some guys out there that are just doing nothing.
I don't know. I don't know if they could turn it around.
Like
Stefanski's been there for what?
Cleveland would have been a
5 years.
perfect place for Bill Belichick to turn a team around, right? You want to resurrect a team?
He's been
Do
there.
that. If you can do it with Cleveland, you can do it with anybody.
Although it's Cleveland. I don't think, honestly, this Bill Belichick thing, the more you hear about it, I just don't think teams wanted him. That's why he went to college. He reached out to the Jets. He asked them about that coaching job. That's how desperate he became. I just don't think people wanted him. And listen, he was in Cleveland. He was the coach before they moved.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. All right. Cleveland, good luck. This one's for you.
Oh, yeah. They're on the way down again.
Yeah.
If there was anything lower.
So let's go and move on to number 3, Ron. And it gets us to the NHL, and that is the Buffalo Sabres. So 1,929 wins, 1,689 losses, 409 ties, 195 overtime losses. Postseason, you see that, 124, 132, 0 Stanley Cups. They've been in 29 postseasons in 54 seasons.
Yeah. 13 since,
currently one of the
1990.
longest in professional sports, 13 straight.
Their last time, 2010, 2011, that season, look, I mean, they have a winning record, right? Overall through history, a winning record. But when they're bad, they're really bad. Really bad. And I'm looking at what's happening to them this year. Last year, they made, they traded Eichel. They got some players back and they played better, right? And last season was a pretty decent season. They didn't miss by much. But here we are, 2024-25 season. They look just like the Buffalo Sabres in the last 13 years, right? 14 years. They just have nothing. And, comparatively with Detroit and Cleveland, yes, different sport, but there's still the same aspects of all the reasons why. And with with their draft, they've drafted great players. I mean, lots of them, lots of talent. But their biggest problem is grooming their talent. They just don't get what the players' talent is. And I don't think they're preparing them very well. These players that are getting drafted, top 5 all the time. It seems like they have a top 5, 10 pick, right? They're not getting like Owen Power. I don't even hear his name across the league right now. He's supposedly going to be one of the best defensemen that came into the league, right? Nothing. There's nothing. All this talent. They gave away Jack Eichel, which is another aspect. Their trades are horrible. Now, you're never going to get back, like if anybody trades their star player, if Toronto trades Matthews, you're never going to get back what you give, right? But you have to
something to build on, right? Something to build on, a piece to build on.
And nothing. This team is just flat. It doesn't know how to groom that talent to make it work. And that's on the franchise. It's on the franchise. They just don't know how to do it. They don't have the people in place to get the talent out of the players that they have. So where is the problem? There's a little bit of bad luck in this, right? I mean, they're getting the players. They just can't put it together. And it doesn't matter who they put in as a coach. A lot of those coaches are pretty decent coaches. They're just not getting enough.
Well,
And
you
it's got
said
to be the skill level isn't meeting the potential.
you said it since 2012 when Ruff was their coach. So he was there for quite some time.
Yeah.
They've basically switched every year to 2 years.
Yeah.
Garanato was their coach the last 3 seasons. 2 of the 3 winning record. They move on and go to Ruff again. So again, you were on a path to get better. He had shown a promise that this team was moving in the right direction. His last 2 seasons were winning seasons, and you move on from him. So here you go again. And now Ruff comes in and has to try to rebuild this thing, which probably sets him back a couple years.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, at the top, right? This is the people making the moves and the decisions at the top. They're not putting the people in place to make things happen. Their scouting has no problem. They're scouting. They're getting those players in the draft, highly touted, and they're not getting the returns. And it's because of the people you have in place in control of those players. And this is what Buffalo keeps getting wrong time after time. Look, you had Dominic Hasek, one of the best goaltenders ever.
Ever, yeah.
And you can't win, even though they kind of got screwed that season. But still, you can't use that because what happens to the next year? You still have that goaltender. Well, you end up getting rid of the goaltender. This is what happens. These kind of teams have small windows. And when the money gets too much, you have to move on from them. But if you have a steady stream of quality players coming in, you should be able to control, what you're losing to what you're gaining. And I know if you lose a Dominic Hasek, there's not a Hasek there's not a Hasek tree, right? His Dominic Jr. It doesn't work that way. But you have to keep things moving in the right direction. And that is why you got to know your team roster, and they don't understand that you have certain players for certain things. And if this guy's contract is going to be up the following year, you need to make sure you get a player in there that knows how to do that, what that specialty is, right? And this is a team that doesn't understand that. Doesn't understand it. I mean, look, it didn't work out for the Bruins this year with Lindholm, right? They lost Bergeron and Krejci. You have to replace them. They went with the youth. They weren't happy enough, and they went out and they signed Lindholm to take over in center. That's not working out, but at least they tried, But Buffalo doesn't do that. If they don't try to replace what they need, you have to assess that.
I think at some point you just got to look at, again, just do they even know how to win? So I looked up in 54 seasons, Ron, they finished in first 6 times.
Yeah.
54 seasons, 6 times. I mean, they just don't know how to win. They just don't know how to get to that next plateau. And to your point, either a coach or a player that's been there that might know how to finally, spark something in that culture of it. That's where the problem is. And I think you're seeing that with all this so far, the 3 teams we've talked about. It's just there is not a winning mentality, regardless of how great the players are or how good a coach may be. There's something about a franchise that they just don't know what their next right move is.
No, that's it.
And you've seen it with them. And unfortunately, again, they're tied for the longest playoff drought in professional history with 13 straight seasons now without making the postseason.
Yeah.
And it's not looking very good this season. It's not looking very good this season either. So
no, it's looking horrible. They're going in reverse again.
Well, again, you bring back Ruff. How old is Ruff? He's got to be up there.
I mean, he played, I want to say it was the 90s. Could have been 80s.
Let's see if it gives me a. He's
He's
64.
got to be up there.
Yeah, 64.
Yeah. See, here's the problem. You want to go out and you want to get somebody that has won a championship. Now, and I know I threw this name out for the Bruins when they fired Montgomery. Claude Julien, who is an assistant coach right now, but at the end of the season, you go and get a guy like that who's going to give you a team that can play solid defense in front of your goaltender. And they have some good goaltenders that just need some help. They need some help. And he can install that winning culture. I mean, Claude Julien has the record for the Bruins wins, right?
Yep.
He can get you to win. So that's a kind of coach that you need to put into a team like this just to change the culture. He might not bring you to the promised land, but he's going to change the culture in that locker room. You're going to be able to win some games. Buffalo never goes out and do that. They get coaches from within, and it doesn't solve any problem because the coach doesn't have a winning attitude. Okay. And nothing against Lindy Ruff, right? I think he'd make a hell of a coach. He has to learn how to win as well. He doesn't know how to do it because he played in Buffalo.
Yeah, he coached Buffalo. I mean, again, the last time they went to the postseason. So 13 years ago. That doesn't, I mean, at this point, the league's changed. Everything's changed. Don't feel very good about their chances.
Eric, the players that they've had in on their roster, besides Dominic Hasek, Dave Andreychuk, right? Phil Housley, Gilbert Perreault. We've had that name a couple of times. Pierre Turgeon. These are good hockey players. How do you not win with these guys, right? You got to have winning seasons with these guys, and they can't do it. They can't do it. You had Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel is like, he's been unbelievable for Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, winning cultures. All right. Well, that's Buffalo. All right. So we've beaten up 3 teams. Let's beat up on a 4th team here. Number 2 on our list.
Oh, my God.
The Los Angeles Clippers.
Oh,
look at that record.
Look, they can't even come out right on the graphics.
157 wins, 2,529 losses.
That's awful.
That's 55 seasons. They've been to the playoffs 18 times. 0 championships. Their win percentage is .423 as a franchise. And you feel bad in one aspect because Steve Ballmer is an owner who's willing to spend money and try to put players on the court, and it's still not working. That no matter what moves they make.
He's only owned the team a couple of years, though. So I think he's in a position where he's got all these players that are laying around, and he's got to try to rebuild. And it's going to be hard because didn't they lose a bunch of draft picks too?
They might have back in the day.
Like a few years ago, right? They gave up a bunch of draft picks for something, and I can't remember what it was for. But either way, they still have to rebuild. They had all these players that were aging. Chris Paul, they had a lot of guys that were really on the downslide, right? So when he took it over, it was already too late.
Well, here's a franchise too, and I don't remember the dude's name now because a couple of years ago, basically the league kicked him out. The owner was that bad.
Yeah.
For numerous,
a horrible man,
right? It was just a bad man. So he didn't care about the franchise. Right. They go through it. You get Kawhi Leonard, who everybody was trying to crown as the next great player, and he can't even seem to get on the court. No. Right? You trade Paul George,
bad
who you
luck.
thought was going to be
Clippers
right?
in that category.
And that's where we say about that winning culture, and it's just. Even with the players, it just seems like there's nobody that can stay healthy. There's nobody that can perform. Chris Paul, when he was there, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, like all those guys were like at that prime. And you're saying this should
and
be an easy thing for them.
what they got for those players when they're exiting is nothing, right? They're not getting anything for those trades, which is a big part of it.
They had
Whether
Paul Pierce too.
because they're too old, and even when they sign players, they're signing aging players, hopes that, oh, well, maybe this guy is the key to getting to that championship. But no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. What this team needs, and I think, and I hope the owner realizes this, you got to get fresh legs in there. You got to bite the bullet for a couple of years and get some new players in there, and then do it the right way. You get a couple of players in the draft, in a couple of years, and let them grow, kind of like Brown and Tatum. You got to do that. And then what did they do? They just added a couple of pieces, and then boom, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they even have the capability to do it. Mike, thanks for joining.
No, I mean,
this is not they're only like everybody we've talked about, like the Lions 100 games, under 500. The Browns, 30 games, a little under 30 games. This team 700 games under 500. This isn't they've had a bad stretch. They've had a bad 55 years.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind that, listen, new arena, like all this stuff that they're going to get. And you sit back and look at this franchise and go, this is the worst part for the Clippers. They share a city with the Lakers.
Oh, yeah.
Who's been one of the most successful teams in NBA history. So it makes it look even worse when you have a team that's in the same city that you shared an arena with, that you basically couldn't sell out to try because all the people cared about were the Lakers.
Right.
And that was tough because you're a losing franchise and you can't even, have your own city to be able to say, okay, at least it's our city.
You're not getting the support from the fans either. So it's kind of a franchise that really needs to find a new home, to me.
Well, they're moving up.
I would love them to move to Seattle.
Yeah, bring back the Sonics. I don't think that's going to happen.
If they move to Seattle, it then becomes their town, and with this new owner, hopefully he can get things right. What do you think about the coaching?
Tyronn Lue now he's not a bad coach. I think the injuries have devastated this team the last few years. Like not having Kawhi, it kills you. Then Paul George, is often injured. It just doesn't seem like they had a plan. Again, Ballmer's spending money to try to get these players in.
Yep.
Whatever's that curse on this franchise, that's what you've seen. They can't seem to figure it out, even when they're successful, right? Like last year, I think they won 50 plus games, Ron. But again, Kawhi missed the postseason. So
again, like they're suffering from a lot of bad luck. I think that might be right now their biggest issue. And it's sprung on because of history, right? And it's sprung on because you're signing guys that have a history of it. So you got to change that history and that culture. And I don't think the coach is the problem. Right now, that roster's the problem. And like I said, I think this team needs to refocus, let contracts go, and then just try to get something back. If I was this team, I would probably trade Kawhi Leonard for whatever you can get at the deadline.
Problem is he's damaged goods.
Somebody will pick him up just because.
0 championships, 55 seasons, 18 playoff appearances. Just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're getting a new arena. So, Ron, before we go into the number one worst franchise, let's just revisit. So at number 5, we had the Detroit Lions as the 5th worst franchise in sports history.
Oops.
At That number, well, you just blew that one. All right. Well, I wonder who's number one.
Oh, go ahead. Read it.
Number 5,
I
Detroit
meant to put
Lions.
this up.
At 4, we had the Cleveland Browns. At 3, the Buffalo Sabres. At 2, the Los Angeles Clippers. Pretty bad franchises, pretty sorry franchises. The fact that we could come up with one even worse is pretty amazing.
And let me tell you, like, the Clippers, I could say that they deserve the top spot, right?
700, yeah, under 700 games,
Right.
yeah, under 500.
And they didn't win a championship. Number one did.
Yes. Number 1 did.
That's the Lions.
That's the line. There's number 1, the New York Jets, the worst franchise in sports history. We are saying it. I know everybody out there agrees. Look at that record: 432 wins, 557 losses, 8 ties, 12-13 all time in the postseason. They have their last championship, 1968. The Colts won 16-7. Obviously, the Namath, right? That's their claim to fame.
Right.
That
was it.
That
was it.
They have not been, again, tied for the worst performance or playoff drought. Last 13 seasons has not made the postseason. Not making it again this year. Think about Aaron Rodgers, first snap last year. Pop.
So if Buffalo actually gets their act together and they go on a winning streak, they could actually break out of that, and the Jets could be the lone team.
Jets will be at 14 seasons after this year. Weeb Eubank, all-time winningest coach, by the way, 71, 77, and 6.
That must have been back in the Namath days, right?
Yes, it was actually. And that's what I'm saying. Like, their claim to fame at this point, the butt fumble.
Right.
Like, there is not a positive you can spin on this organization. Woody Johnson, considered one of the worst owners in the NFL.
It isn't because of talent. They've had a lot of talent on this team. They draft really well.
They got one of the best cornerbacks, one of the best wide receivers in the league, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner. Like, they've done some good things. And then you sit back and go, how is this even possible?
How?
Like, it just blows my mind because, again, here's another franchise that we're going to say coaching changes consistently. You know what I mean? Never making smart decisions with draft picks or players. And it just goes to show you.
They have a problem with quarterbacks.
So 65 seasons.
That's their problem.
65 seasons.
I mean, drafting Wilson. I knew that was going to be a
Zach
bust.
Wilson, right? Horrible.
I mean, it goes back Sanchez, all of them.
Well, Salah was what, 3+ years. They had Adam Gase for 2, Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, Eric Mangini. This is just in the last few years.
Yeah.
Rex Ryan's the last guy to get him to the postseason.
Yeah, he wasn't too bad. Defense, he was a genius. He always had a good defense. Never had a quarterback, though.
You know what hurts sometimes, too? When you're in a division, and I know this is only like the last 20-something years, but the AFC East was dominated by one team.
Yeah.
So you sit back, and this is what happens. We're seeing it now in the AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like all these other Chiefs, the Chargers are a pretty good team. Guess what? You never win in the division. You know what I mean? Yeah. Denver probably going to make the playoffs now.
And now the problem you have in Buffalo, Josh Allen. So now New York has to go through the Josh Allen decade, right?
And think about it. Questions again next year. Aaron Rodgers back. Who knows? Depends on the coach. Like, you're going to start again from scratch.
Yeah.
From scratch. Here we go again.
He's going to be done. And now they're sitting there without a quarterback. And what are they going to do? They're going to pick one, fifth, sixth?
Like, how long can you live off of Joe Namath, too? The poor guy. Like, how long could you not only listen when your legend is more known now for being drunk during a sideline interview, because that's more recent than your playoff success.
It
Like,
doesn't
that's
say
what
much
then,
for the other teams, right? How drunk were they?
right? But Joe Namath's on the sideline trying to make out with sideline reporters, and it's like that's what I remember. I don't remember
Yeah.
him in 1968.
With his fur coats and stuff.
Like, it just seems like, to your point, we've talked about all these franchises, and it's the same consistency. It comes from the ownership to start, except I would say with the Clippers, because I don't think Ballmer's a bad owner. I
Look,
just
this
think
is a team
that's
that
a bad
shoots
luck.
themselves in the foot all the time. It's self-inflicted almost all the time. Look, even this year, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? It's got to be. He's the only common denominator for all the problems. It's their quarterback.
But why would
This
you even
is
think?
shooting
And this is
themselves
where
in the foot.
yeah, and this is why I say they're going to continue to have problems, because what are they talking about? Possibly bringing him back. Like, we've seen what he can do now. Like, the first year, you go, okay, hey, Achilles didn't get to find out what the product on the field. Could he help them win? This year, you've seen it. He can't help them win.
No,
Move on.
no, he's not good enough now.
Right? Move on.
He's a guy that we were talking about. Oh, Tom Brady going to fall. He fell off the cliff.
Yeah. And to your point, it's not because of lack of talent. Like, at least if you sat back and go, wow, you know what? He doesn't have a top wide receiver. Then you bring Devontae Adams in, who's one of your top targets. It didn't matter. Nothing changed because the organization has decided that the most important thing is this: I am going to make money regardless. And I saw something the other day that pissed me off. It was like the top franchises, and like Dallas is up there as one of I think the most money for a franchise. You think Jerry Jones cares about winning when your team is the highest grossing sports franchise in America? Like, it doesn't matter. The New York Jets are going to have fans. The New York Giants are going to have fans because of New York.
Yeah.
And these owners don't take it seriously because they're still making money. Because the NFL is going to pay you. If you don't have fans in the seats, it don't matter. You're getting money from the NFL. So none of it matters. And that's what's sad, because when you own a franchise, you would think your first priority would be, I want to win. Like, I want to just win. And all these guys care about is the bottom line. And that's what you've seen in New York.
It is. And there's other teams out there that are just as bad as these five. Just as bad, right? Cincinnati. How did they fail this year? Right? It's the same thing with Cincinnati year after year after year. They had 1 year that was great. They had hope and went to the Super Bowl. But since then, it's been not the same.
And this is number one grossing franchise in American sports right now. Dallas Cowboys, $9 billion is their value. $9 billion. You think he cares? If they go back 1996, they don't care. Then you go Yankees.
That's why I said they have to be careful, because the trend is not in their favor.
Yeah. Yankees are number 2, Ron.
Yeah.
2009, the last time they won. 15 years. They don't care. 7.1 billion. Golden State Warriors. All right. More recent, they've won 7 million. New England Patriots tied 7 million. You think Robert Kraft really gives a lick about winning right now? He's making
how much does Patriots make?
$7 billion. They are the third highest franchise. You know who's number 6, Ron? The New York Giants at 6.8. You think they care?
They have no excuse.
The Chicago Bears, 6.3. The Raiders, 6.2. Let me know the trends here. Tied for 9th. The New York Jets, 6.1 billion. They don't care. These owners don't care. They're making money. And that's what's sad, because you're going to put a product, you're going to be ranked number 1 on the worst sports franchise in sports history. And it doesn't matter, because you've made $6.1 billion as a franchise. That's where the problems start. That's where New England's problems are starting, because the owner's more worried about money. The New York Giants, 6.8 billion. You think they really care? Don't matter.
It's it just shows that the teams don't really care about the fans or the actual product on the field as long as they're making money.
Making money.
And it's just the way it is until people stop going,
which doesn't
it's
happen
when
to
they
them, right?
realize it. The same thing happened to the Red Sox. Remember when they were doing terrible, what was it, 70s or 60s? They were doing terrible, and fans stopped going. And it happened just before they won the World Series, just like about 4 years before that. Fans weren't going to the park. They weren't selling out. And once the owners start getting a hint of not a full field, a full stadium, that's when they get the hint because it hits the dollar value. And then they have to do something about it. And then they have a little influx of players to get the hopes up. And that's about it. But these teams that we've talked about are all going through the same thing time after time after time after time. And you lose fans that way.
Yeah, I don't know, buddy.
You lose fans.
I don't know.
So
I'm looking at this list, and this isn't even just. I stand corrected. Like Real Madrid's on here at number 11. Like this is in just sports overall.
I'm surprised they're that low.
Manchester United, tied for 13th with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Like you look at some of these teams, man, and they've just been bad. Cleveland Browns are 30th round, $4.62 billion. What did we say? 1964, last championship.
So the dog pound is still there.
So 4 winning seasons in the last 25 years, they still made $4.62 billion.
Go figure, right?
There you go.
NFL
That's why these are the first franchises in sports history. So that list was the Detroit Lions at number 5. The Cleveland Browns came in at 4. The Buffalo Sabres at 3. The Los Angeles Clippers, the second worst franchise, but the worst franchise in sports history. The New York Jets, 13 straight seasons now without a postseason, but they're still making billions. So congratulations, Woody Johnson.
So Eric, I got a little surprise for you.
Oh, I like it. Oh, more likely. Okay, let's do it. Little split decision.
All right, because we're doing this for all these wonderful teams, there's still other teams out there that, may or may not be on this list next time.
Okay.
All right, first of all, who will win the championship first? Buffalo Sabres or the Utah Hockey Club, which was Arizona Coyotes, who were just as bad.
Based on what we just talked about, I'd go Utah. Just Buffalo does not seem like they could figure it out. 0 cups, dude. 54 seasons.
This is what we're talking about. We have so little confidence in Buffalo that even Utah Hockey Club is more likely to win one first.
Ron, I got one for you because I heard this nugget yesterday. It was on the news here in Connecticut. Is it more likely the Hartford Whalers return? There's a strong push to bring the Hartford Whalers back.
Or
does it happen?
More likely to
or there's a newer franchise somewhere else.
I mean, Connecticut, I think, could keep a team. Because didn't they play at the mall before?
Yeah, well, they said they're going to but it wasn't a very good arena. But they are saying that state-of-the-art arena, they're going to build. They got this whole thing that they would do. But again, to me, major market, Hartford, you're in between New York, Boston. It makes sense.
I mean, people have been clamoring for a while.
Yeah, the Whalers are very popular still.
I will say yes, because I think New England, New York could support another team.
So Hartford Whalers more likely to be back.
More likely.
In Hartford. Yes, obviously. That's all.
Because it could be a team that moves.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Go ahead. What else you got? You got another one?
Oh, I got another one. I got another one. Going on the same thing. Who will more likely win a championship, a Super Bowl first? Buffalo Bills or the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, Dallas has already won. So you're saying next?
Next. Yes, next. That's what I meant.
You'd have to say Buffalo's trajectory is much higher right now. Like the odds are in their favor because you think Josh Allen at least another good 6-7 years where there's a possibility. Dallas right now is just a mess. So I would go as crazy as on Buffalo. But again, another franchise that's kind of not had luck when it comes to the postseason. And we really thought last year was going to be their year. We're like, all right, and it didn't materialize. So I would probably go that route. All right. I got one for you too.
Okay.
All right. More likely to break 13 straight seasons without making the postseason first. The Buffalo Sabres or the New York Jets?
Oh my God. Jesus. I have no hope for either of them. But I gotta say oh my God, that's so difficult. New York Jets.
Really?
Because
Usually
they
half
have
the
a
teams
lot
make
of
the
talent.
postseason in the NHL.
I know.
You got a better odds than
But to win a championship? Oh, wait.
just to get to the
No,
postseason.
this is just to break. Oh,
Yeah,
no, hell no. Just to get the playoffs, it's Buffalo.
All right. I was going to say, wait a minute.
Buffalo.
Yeah, not a championship.
Yeah, no, because there's no way Buffalo is getting through teams like Florida, Carolina. They're not going to get through them.
Yeah.
Okay. But to make the playoffs, they could do that this year if they get hot,
Yeah. Yeah. And we
I
already
mean,
know
they
the
have to
Jets
get
aren't.
really hot.
Yeah, and we know the Jets aren't, so it makes it a little easier. All
Yeah,
right.
So, so I would say Buffalo.
All right.
I would do that. So, look, it's certainly, we've talked about this so many times about all these franchises, how they just keep making mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And it's multiple times in a year. So whether it's a bad trade or a bad signing, Brett Favre. I mean, not Brett Favre. Oh, yeah, Brett
Aaron
Favre.
Rodgers. They did Brett Favre too. Yeah, that
and,
didn't go well.
And Aaron Rodgers, or just signing on players that are always injured, or just bad coaching and not getting the players' talent out where it belongs, right? I mean, there's a lot of these players that are on these franchises that are great players, and Myles Garrett is right at the top of that list. And how do you not put things around a player like that? I mean, it's mind-boggling when you look at that roster. That roster is horrible for Cleveland. It's not going anywhere. And how long are you going to keep a Myles Garrett happy, right?
I agree.
There's going to be a time where you're going to offer him more money than somebody else, and he's not going to take it. He's going to go somewhere else because there's more hope.
Yeah.
Like if you're Myles Garrett, hey, where do I want to play? Everybody will want you.
Yeah.
And you're looking around the league. I was like, well, gee, I could probably win one with Detroit. Imagine him on Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Buffalo, right?
He needs to go. Oh my God, I'd love to see him in Buffalo. Well, I'm a New England Patriot fan. I wouldn't want to see it, but he would be amazing there.
Yeah. So listen, all these franchises, good luck, because it don't look like there's a light at the end of the tunnel right now for you.
Yeah. No, I mean it's pretty bad out there.
Pretty grim.
But
it's pretty grim. But hey, I want to thank everybody. This has been pretty fun. Our Sports Unfolded Sports Special. Our starting 5 worst franchises in sports history. We are continuing to look for sponsors. I like that little thing right there. That's pretty cool.
You like that?
So again, if you'd like to be a sponsor of our show, just go to our email at ribroadcasting.media@gmail.com. We will give you all that information on how you can become a sponsor. Get your name right above our banner right there. We are live every Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rhode Island Broadcasting and Sports Unfolded. So hundreds of eyes on your business or heard every single week. We continue to grow. So take an opportunity to do that. I look forward to seeing you this Friday night at 6 p.m. Ron.
Let me read the thing so that way people get
sure.
the picture, right? Because all you have to do is send it in, right, to the ribroadcasting.media@gmail.com. Your ad will be here. We will read the ad. So not only will people see it, but it will be heard on the audio version for Spotify, Amazon, Red Circle, and many more. So send us an email at ribroadcasting.media@gmail.com.
It's that easy. We will see everyone Friday night at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us on our Sports Unfolded Sports Special. 5 worst franchises in sports history. We had some fun. I want to thank Mike and Kenny for joining us live tonight as well. And we get to do it all over again Friday at 6 p.m., Ron. I'll see you then. And all we ever ask for every single show is that we get peace on earth.
Tomorrow, NBA show.
Oh, NBA show with Kenny tomorrow. Awesome.
Tomorrow, 8 p.m.
All right.
Eastern time.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Take care.